Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Groundwater, and I'm the short drama lead on the selection committee for the Breck Film Fest. Welcome to the Q&A for two of our best films, the best student film and the best short drama. Both of these award-winning films are in the excellent Uplifting Moments block sponsored by Phyllis and Gary Martinez. And hopefully many of you know that, that this year's festival is in honor of Phyllis Martinez. I hope most of the audience here has seen these films already, but if not, be sure to go to breckfilmfest.org and before midnight on Sunday, October 4th, and watch the Uplifting Moments short drama block. And be sure to vote for your audience favorite. So I'm truly disappointed that I couldn't share a drink or two or three with these filmmakers at beautiful Breckenridge, but this virtual Q&A is our next best thing. We stayed true to our Breck experience and focused on interaction with filmmakers in Q&As, special panel discussions, and interviews. So I hope that everyone has enjoyed the online experience. And if you're here locally, the drive-ins that we've put together under trying and interesting circumstances. So I'm going to start the Q&A with Six Nights, the film that won both Best Student Film and Best Colorado Film. We have two filmmakers and they're on the same screen with each other here. Robert Brogden, who was the director and producer. Wave, Robert. And Kelly Zinconi, who was the co-producer. So this film tells the story of a single Hispanic father trying to balance working in a high-stress restaurant situation with raising his daughter. And I think this heart tugger will really resonate with the locals that work in the tourism industry. So Robert, I want to start off by asking you, could you tell us about the challenges of shooting in a working restaurant for this film?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, yeah, thank you, Beth, and for everybody here. Jeff, wonderful film moment. We enjoyed it a lot, and we're happy to be selected amongst some great films. Shooting in a restaurant, I guess, as you might imagine, was definitely not easy and had its share of challenges. So I was working at this restaurant at the time. And, you know, they were super cooperative. They let us get away with so much. I mean, they were so open, but I mean, the only thing is, right, we're still a functioning restaurant. We're going to open every morning and close every night. And, you know, basically whatever we needed to do in between A and B, we could do, but we still had to load out every night and load in every next night. So that in and of itself, I guess, was a challenge. I guess you'd call it like Kevin Smith Clerks style, where he's shooting in the place where he works. So that was kind of interesting logistically. But then on top of that, there were just certain limitations that came along with the space. We had, you know, a very kind of cramped space. We had not a lot of room, a lot of concrete walls, a lot of kitchen equipment, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So we had to be very creative, I think. Dylan Kraus, our director of photography, did a great job of kind of working creatively and lensing creatively and finding just little places to hide. And I like to say, I mean, any frame that's in the film, especially in the kitchen, I mean, there is crew standing everywhere that you can't see. I mean, there's no way we could have made this film in the world we're living in now, because I don't think there was 6 feet of distance between any two people on the entire set. So it was unique, but I think that hopefully that added to the realism and added to the feel of claustrophobia and tightness in the kitchen itself. So yeah.
And it was also all overnights, which was probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, good call from the producer. Yeah. We had to find great patient people to work with, because we were sleepy. Coming in, sleepy, coming in at what, 9 p.m.
Yeah, so we had to wait for them to close and clean up and stuff. So kind of working around their crew while we're trying to sort of set up still and then get out of there and clean it before they come in and open. Yeah. And put everything back. So that was tough.
So I have a comment from Becky, who said that the dishwasher water splashing on the main character's face was a nice detail. I also like the sounds of dishwashing running through the credits. It added to the idea of never-ending commit that the father had to make to this lifestyle.
Great. Yes. Well, we love when people just get it. I mean, yes, thank you. That's what we wanted. So that's good. I'm
And
glad.
that the shot that was like one of the most complicated shots of getting that splash. So I'm glad someone out there
Yeah.
really appreciated it.
So
Our
someone
production
knows.
designer, yeah, our production designer Emmy will be glad to hear that. She was
Yeah,
like,
we'll tell her.
we're getting the ratio of like water to like ranch dressing to everything, and we're going, okay, do we flick it? I mean, Emmy put in a ton of patience, and then obviously Daniel, our lead, put in a ton of patience because he kept getting splashed in the face with dishwater. So
And we reshot it. So we did 2 nights of that.
I couldn't even tell you how many takes. So it's, yeah, glad to hear it.
So speaking of Daniel, I want you to talk about how you cast this film, particularly him and the daughter, and how it was working with a child actor. Was that challenging, or did you, particularly at night, you know, if you don't start shooting until after 9 p.m.?
Definitely. Do you want to talk about casting a little bit?
Yeah, so casting for us was sort of the big thing that we wanted to focus on with this. As student filmmakers, we were like, we kind of want to bring the best acting that we can with our resources. So Daniel was he the last person that we got?
Yeah, I think he was.
He was our longest, like it took us the longest to find him. We were very, particular about what we were looking for. And we actually found him through another producer that I know who I think I was actually going to ask for money for the film, but I quickly pivoted when he said he might have someone that would work. And I was like, well, that would be a great addition, if you could help in any way. And so he gave me the number to a friend that he knew, who knew Daniel. And we actually ended up talking with him first. His name is Paco. And I think I talked to him for like an hour and a half just about filmmaking and how excited they were about the script. And then we met Daniel, had an audition, and pretty much cast him right there on the spot.
Well, and a funny story is, I think, so Daniel and Paco are both local filmmakers as well. And they're, as you are when you're, local amateur filmmakers like we are. I mean, they do everything. They act, they write, they direct, etc. And so I'm not sure what exactly happened, but I didn't hear this story until much later. But I don't think that Daniel knew that he was going to be auditioning until maybe he was sitting in the parking lot and Paco had driven him there. I'm not sure where, again, exactly Paco thought that, or where Daniel thought Paco was taking him. But in the parking lot, he's like, yeah, man, it's an audition. It's going to be for you. You're auditioning for this role. It's a lead role. And we didn't know this. Again, Daniel came in and just like aced this audition. I mean, it was just like totally effortless. So it was not until several months later that I think Paco told me that, and I was just cracking up. It was like, he's a pro. Daniel is a pro. He was ready, and that he brought that attitude, I would say, to set, in terms of just like, what do you need from me? I'm there. Let's do it this way. He was just very game, which I think we appreciated. Yeah. I mean, he was totally on board.
What about Sophia?
Yeah, and then so as to working with a kid, I mean, I think that I understand it can sometimes be difficult to work with kids. We did not have that experience on this film. Sophia's like a pro. Nicole is a pro. She came in, and she's actually very funny, which I think doesn't necessarily shine through in this role. But for a kid, someone that small, to understand comedy, and I mean, she has timing, and she's giving these great performances, and to me, that's even more difficult than drama. And so she came in and was just, I mean, so
she was awesome. Like,
just wonderful. And
the table read, like, it was, everyone's like on her.
She ran the show. Yeah, she ran the table read. I mean, she was just such a little pro, which was cool. So she was great. And then, I think the saying a lot of the times too is, when you're casting a kid, you're casting their parents, and we got lucky in that sense too. Ariadna and Lensis were both really great. And again, just so game. I mean, they drove her up for auditions, for table reads, for rehearsals. I mean, they were just so excited to be a part of the process. And we were very fortunate that they were so excited about it. So we didn't have, it's an old tale, don't work with animals or kids. And but we didn't have that experience at all. She was, Nicole was awesome. A dream to work with. Yeah.
So since her scenes were not in the restaurant, did you film her during the day?
Yes.
It was towards the evening, but we weren't, and we went by union rules. So we were like, okay, we obviously can't have this kid overnight.
Yeah.
But yeah, since she was in her own location, that was the one day that we were not in overnight.
Yeah.
But that was one of the longest days, I think.
Yeah, I think we underestimated that day, of course, as you do. But yeah, we've got garbage bags and everything else taped up in the windows. And yeah, so a lot of that nighttime stuff you're seeing is actually definitely still daylight outside. Yeah.
Okay. So I've got another question from the audience. This is an important story that you're communicating, the single parent struggling with the work-family balance. And so this filmmaker, I just got another question. So what's the key takeaway that you want your audience to gain from watching your film?
I hope that it's not so explicit as to feel like I'm preaching or to say something. I guess it's more just an idea of understanding, how much everyone has going on. I think where this originally came from was just when I was, again, working in a restaurant, and, customers maybe sometimes would come in and they would stay late, and you realize how many people you're keeping there and keeping on the clock who have, children and husbands and wives and friends and lives that they want to get to. Yeah. So I think it's just the relationship, I think what I've been calling it, between, the working class and the dining class, and understanding the power dynamic there. And for me, I think the personal angle was just, trying to hopefully find that work-life balance. I think that's something that I was bringing personally in my own experience, not necessarily with the restaurant, but just even in filmmaking. It's maybe a cautionary tale about saying, I will do my job and I'll do your job too, and you can kind of keep doing that and keep doing that. And where does that get you? So I don't know. It hopefully isn't just one thing, but if there is one thing or one summative thing, it's the idea or the understanding that, everyone is carrying their own thing. Everyone is on their own journey, and you should be mindful of that.
Okay. So you ended up answering that second question in your answer to the one that I asked you. So I'm going to move on to the next film, and then we'll bring in all the filmmakers in case you have a general question, audience members, to ask of filmmakers from both films. So the next film is Moment, which won Best Short Drama, Best Writing, and Best Director. So representing the film are Geoff Uloth, Jeff Wave, or yeah, who was the writer and director that we awarded the best of to, and producer. And then his sister, Holly, you want to give a little wave, who's a co-producer and script consultant. So Geoff managed to pack in themes of superheroes and female and Black empowerment, homelessness, and broken families into one powerful and emotional film. And Geoff, I was fascinated by your approach to superheroes. First, that it's a team of two superheroes versus just one superhero acting solo. And then most importantly, that they help the young woman save herself versus doing the saving themselves. So what made you choose this approach to a superhero story?
It was kind of, I didn't, by the way, thanks for having me here. It was great. Robert and Kelly, it was really wonderful to hear your talking about your film. I look forward to seeing it. So, and thanks for having us here. The idea for the film didn't actually come from a superhero. It didn't start with a superhero idea. It started with this idea of, wouldn't it be great if we could stop time and then astral project around, a situation. Let's say you're being, as like in the short film, you're being attacked. In fact, it was a friend of mine and I were discussing a story that she'd heard, a true life story of a girl who was assaulted at a party and in a back room, and this girl who had been assaulted had kind of felt that this assault was coming, but she didn't really believe that these people in the back room, these guys were those kind of guys, and so she got flustered basically, and she had a chance to escape, but she didn't until it was too late, until she realized the attack was going on. And it was a scary story, and we were talking about it, and it came up, wouldn't it be great if you could stop a moment like that so that you can think about it and not be flustered when you come back, and then you could restart it and just have a plan and not think about it tomorrow and say like, oh, if only I'd done, XYZ. And we sort of discussed it, and she sort of planted that seed. with me. And then I just thought I kept thinking about it. There was something there that I thought was very universal and potentially touching and human, like a desire that we all have to we've all had that moment where we thought like, oh, if only I had done this, or, you know, and gotten flustered or not done the right thing or said the wrong thing or whatever. And only thought about later what we wish we had done. And that's where it kind of came from. And then the superhero element, I've always been a fan of superheroes. And when I was a kid, I used to read comics all the time. And some famous ones like Spider-Man and you know, Captain America, and then obscure ones like Rom, the Space Knight. And so I used to read all these different comic books, and I thought like that would be a really profound superpower if you could stop time and astral project somebody out of their body in the middle of some kind of crisis where you couldn't actually affect it for them in the real world, but you could help them get some perspective, think about it, reflect what they should do next. And then when they come back, it's all up to them. It's no longer standing in front of the bullet and taking the bullet for the person. It's giving them the tools to deal with it themselves. And then I thought, well, if you had a profound enough moment or an intense enough moment, maybe that could be life-changing, because a person then would have the tools to tackle a situation they never thought they could deal with. And then if they do deal with it, what are they like for the rest of their lives once they've done that, you know? So yeah, I thought it was a pretty profound moment, and it kind of moved me and touched me, and I started writing the script from there.
Okay. Well, we got a comment from the audience. Good photography, effects, and editing. This odd little superhero film creates real emotion. It takes the time to be funny in spots, yet presents the sadness of broken families and homelessness. So I want to delve into the special effects that you had, you know, the astral projection and the strange eyes and so on for the superheroes. Can you discuss how you created all these special effects in the film?
Well, yeah, I'm not a special effects artist, but I happen to know some very good, one in particular, Gunnar Hansen, who's a special effects supervisor. And he's done James Bond, and he did Captain America, Winter Soldier. So he's really good. And I was lucky enough to have him say yes, or we were lucky enough to have him say yes. And what he really brought to the film was an artist, a visual effects artist named Andrew Jean, who for very little money worked his butt off for like 6 months originally we'd planned, I think it was 17 or 20 shots, Holly, right? Something like that. And in the end, he delivered 50 shots, wow, which for The Lord of the Rings is no big deal. We've all seen those, you know, hundreds of names, but when it's this visual effects, there's like one name that comes up, you know, it's not this bank of names. So he did everything, and he was really quite amazing. We tried to do a lot of the time stop stuff in camera with the actors holding poses and over cranking the camera, shooting at 90 frames per second, so that when it plays back, it's in slow motion. And so any little movements, you wouldn't notice it as much. Plus we shot Steadicam a lot so that when the camera's moving, you don't quite notice that the actor's not perfectly still. But there were some moments where we had to lock them down digitally because the actors weren't holding poses. Like when Charlie, the girl being attacked, opens her eyes and she looks up and there's the guy sort of over her with his fist hovering there. The actor was moving. He was not able to be perfectly still. So there was a lot of visual effects in cutting people out and freezing them. And it's pretty involved. And I would sit there for hours, you know, giving him moral support while he did it. And I wish I could have helped him out more, but I don't know how to do that stuff. I know more about how it's done now, but I still, you know, my hat's off to that, to Andrew for that. And, you know, there was other things, I guess, visual effects wise, the color correction was a big deal because we had to create 2 different looks. There's the real world. And then when time freezes, there's the astral plane and what does that look like? And so I worked with Alexandre Bussière, who was the director of photography, to come up with a look that was different and also felt frozen. So it was a bit cooler. And yeah, it was a long process. The post, we shot it in the November of 2017, and it wasn't finished until almost mid 2019. because of all the visual effects and because there were so few people doing it, you know, so they had a lot of work to do.
Right, right. Okay, and then, well, that goes into me asking the question of how long it took to make the film. So it was about 2 years totally. And then for both of you, we'll start with you, Jeff, and then I'll go back to Robert. Can you tell us, you know, how long it took to make the film, writing, shooting, editing, etc., you know, for each of those phases, and what was your budget and how did you get the funding? It's a long question, I know.
Yeah, well, you know, I wrote the first, after that conversation with my friend, I wrote the first draft in 2013. And I gave it to Holly. And Holly really, like, I think one of your commenters said that the story was funny and also sort of heartfelt. And Holly really helped with that balance. So there was a long writing process because I'm from Canada and we have arts councils here and you can apply to the arts council. I don't know how it works down in the States or if the individual states have individual sort of routes that you can go for independent short films. But I knew it would be expensive film and an ambitious film, and I didn't want to be out of pocket for a big superhero short. So I was applying to these arts councils, and we got refused like 9 times, and with notes and like, hey, we really liked it, and you know, they're arts councils, and it was a superhero film. It was really hard to sort of get it through. That it wasn't just about superheroes; that it was really about empowerment and you know, a personal journey for a young woman. So, and Holly, so I worked with Holly mostly from 2013 until, when was it, Holly, when we got the money in the end? Like 2016, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, the end of 2016. So, and by then the script had gotten to the place where you guys got to see it, and it was very different at the beginning. And much better. So like getting refused 9 times sounds terrible, and it really wasn't fun, but it got better every single time. Yeah, it got better every time. And we really pushed into it. And I brought a lot of the humor to it, and Holly really sort of pushed hard on keeping it true to the situation. Like, you know, like there was humor that got taken out because it wasn't appropriate actually for that situation. And so, so together we kind of fine-tuned it, and then with the actors too, and Holly got one of her friends to cast the film, Catherine Lemire, and put together a great cast, and we sort of again fine-tuned the story from there. So it was a bunch of questions you had. So like, when do we,
if you're willing to tell us.
I don't mind telling you, it's actually on IMDb, I think.
Yeah.
So it was cash, we had about $185,000 Canadian.
Wow.
Canadian.
You did a lot with that
Canadian,
money.
which is like what, like $20,000 US. It's not much. No, it's like what, a $33% discount. And then, but the total budget with all the deferrals, meaning we deferred everybody's salaries 50% and all these other donations and stuff, the total budget would have been over $250,000 Canadian, 265,000. So, and that took a long time. We got 3 arts councils to come on board, and then we got the National Film Board of Canada to help us out finishing it up because we went over budget.
Yeah.
Even with all that money, Holly and I have not been paid a penny, you know. So that's the you know, the difficult thing about short films and independent film in general. But I think it was worth it, Holly. What do you say?
Sure. Yeah. It's Breckenridge, so.
Hey.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay,
yeah.
Same question to Robert and Kelly, you know, the length of time for each of the phases and the budgeting.
Yeah, so we had the benefit, I suppose, of this being a class or a school project. So it was all written basically in fall of 2018. It was kind of like a last minute thing for me. It's a senior thesis project, and so I think I was kind of like, you know, carrying a lot of weight of like, oh, this needs to be great. I need to do whatever. And at this whole time I had, you know, I was working in this restaurant. I had this great story right under my nose and started the process of writing. And it was originally frankly, much too big piece with front of house and back of house and dishwashers and servers and, you know, line cooks and everything. And there was a character in the script, you know, the dishwasher, whose name even at that time was Diego. And it was just kind of like, at some point I was like, well, I'm really mostly interested in what's going on with this guy, you know, who's like on the phone with his daughter, and I want to know his story. And so it very quickly became his script. And that all sort of happened in the fall of again, 2018. And then we sort of slowly started the process of producing towards the end of that semester. Spring 19 was production. We shot in April of 2019. And then by that time I had written, produced, and directed. And so it was like, okay, I would like to maybe not be burnt out on this film, which is, I think, something that happens when you wear a lot of hats. So I had the benefit of being able to take a little bit of time off. I took a summer break on the film over summer of 2019, came back and cut it in the fall, and then it was finished in the fall. So that's the extremely condensed version of our timeline. Obviously, all kinds of stuff going on in there. And then as far as budget goes, we did a crowdfund. We were able to raise just a little over $4,000 on the Seed and Spark crowdfunding platform. We've done some work in the past, you know, together and separately, just as directors and writers and editors and all kinds of stuff. So we did that. We got about $1,200 back from the school in like a reimbursement. They have a program set up for, again, capstone thesis level projects or whatever, where they'll reimburse you for crafty and things like that, up to about $1,200. And then I think between Kelly and myself and our DP, you know, we split up the remainder, couple $1,000. I mean, just out of pocket, you know, covering things here and there.
Yeah.
So we got money from all over the place. I mean, that's student filmmaking, that's amateur filmmaking, you know, just anybody who will pay.
Well, and also like you have to remember, because it was through the school, we weren't paying crew.
Right.
And a lot of the equipment, that's basically why you go to the school, right? To like not have to pay the crew and pay for the equipment. So you're paying tuition. So yeah, like it, obviously the budget would have been way more if we had to do that, you know, pay that many people. We probably had 40 people for 6 nights. So, I mean, pretty decent size.
4 6 nights for 6 nights.
Yeah, 4 6. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, we benefited from having, you know, and again, you spend 3 or 4, however many years in film school, and hopefully you're networking, hopefully you're making those connections, hopefully you're, you know, paying your dues and working on other people's projects. And then I think we pulled out just about every favor we could have asked for this, as far as our little circle here in Denver. And that was nice. You know, I think everybody who worked on it was excited about it, and, you know, had worked with us before and liked working with us. So hopefully I think we created a positive environment for everybody to work in.
Yeah, for no pay.
Okay.
Yeah. Good
So
food, really good food.
Yeah. We have another audience question for both films. So I'm going to start with Robert, since we ended with you, and then we'll go to Jeff. For all the filmmakers, what's next? Are you going to be doing more with this film, or do you have a new project? And how is the virus affecting what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. Well, so I'll answer the second question first, because it's kind of a bigger question, or it feels like, yeah, I think the virus is affecting everybody, obviously. So we're in Denver now. We sort of had machinations, I think, on heading out to LA in September. But given, you know, not only the virus, but the, you know, fires and everything else, it was kind of like, maybe now is not the best time. Maybe we should kind of hunker down here for a second. So we'll be here through February of 2021. And yeah, I mean, you know, we're trying to adapt as much as possible. I think as we're making the festival circuit with this film, you know, we're trying to be really engaged in stuff like this, and Q&As and virtual happy hours and things like that, just because
there's nothing else.
Well, and I think it's, going to be this way for a little while. So, you know, we want to find the opportunity in it, I guess. Yeah, so that's one thing. And then as far as next projects, for me, I have a project that has kind of been near and dear to me for a long time, and that I've been working on in little bits and pieces for a long time. My grandfather lives in Western Kansas, from Kansas originally, and my grandfather lives in Western Kansas in the last remaining settlement of freed slaves, you know, American slaves. And, you know, it's just this old town, and there's just a lot of history there. And I went out actually several years ago and shot a bunch of interview footage with him, and just kind of followed his life. It's about his life and his experiences, but really kind of about his relationship with my grandmother, who died about a decade ago. And it's extremely personal, you know, as you can probably guess. And so it's been hard for me to sit down and really work through it a lot, especially while being in school and everything else. And so if there's one good thing from having all of this new free time, it's that I have been able to engage a little more with that project. So that's kind of got 100% of my attention right now, just because I already have the footage and it just needs to be cut. So that's what's next.
So Jeff and Holly, how would you answer that question of what's next and how is the virus affecting it?
Jeff, you go first.
No, Holly, you go first.
Okay. Okay. So as you guys know, obviously the virus has affected the entertainment industry, and here in Montreal, everything's at a standstill for sure. Like, Montreal is a primarily French city. Quebec is a French province. And so already as like English language productions they're very few and far between. And I work for a small independent production company that produces television. And it's really like nothing has happened. Like, I feel so blessed that I've been able to keep my job, although now I'm at part-time, but it's really at a standstill. Like, if you are a small production company, you can't afford to be shooting. You can't afford to put in place all the protocols that are needed, you know, for people's safety and health. And the insurance companies won't insure you. So unless you're really big and you have a lot of money, you just can't be shooting. And it's pretty scary, just knowing that, you know, we may not go into production on anything until the end of 2021, maybe 2022, if we can get something into development soon. But it's a bit of a scary place. So in terms of next projects, it's really just all about being able to pitch as much as you can, because right now you can't actually shoot anything. So
yeah. I mean, I would basically say the same thing as Holly. It's you know, the virus has affected everything and made things very difficult for shooting. That said, I'm actually shooting a show right now, but it's a reality adventure show with the team that we make the show called Chasing Monsters, which is on Netflix and Discovery and Nat Geo. And we're now doing a new series called Last of the Giants. And so it's a sort of adventure, big fish, environmental show. And that type of show you can do, but it's still really tricky. And so we're out in the middle of northern British Columbia right now. I'm in a log cabin at the moment in an office. The phone might ring anytime. We're in our little bubble and we're out here shooting, and it's, you know, like one or two people come in, and we're in tiny little communities and we don't see anybody, and we go out on boats and rafts and in the woods hiking. And that's kind of the type of show that can get away with it right now. But fiction, no, it's really tough. Like Holly said, like if you want to follow the protocols that are put in place for COVID, you gotta hire people. It costs a lot of money. So it's tough. I think right now is the time for development, you know, pitch, like Holly said, and like Robert and Kelly said, you know, writing, pitching ideas. That's the time to really get back to those projects that we've been sort of putting off or thinking about and maybe not jumping into because we're afraid of them for some reason or another. We're afraid to fail at them or something. For the projects that are near and dear to our hearts, and now's the time to do it, you know. So that's what when I get out of the woods here, I plan on you know, after Holly and I will go up for a coffee in Montreal and catch up. I plan on getting back to writing some projects that I've shelved for a while. There's some projects that you know, feature projects, and I would like to turn Moment into a TV series. To be honest, I think Moment would work as a TV series where every episode we freeze a moment and not just learn about the intricacies of that moment, but through that moment, discover the humanity of the person who's stuck in it and why they're there, and then see if they can get out of it. Because obviously at the end, if we stick to the formula at the end, it's always up to the person and not up to the superheroes to get out of it. So I think that would be really compelling as something that explores human, sort of the human condition through every episode, whether it's, you know, like an attack in this situation, or a suicide, or a school shooting, or there are many things that we can get into with that kind of idea. So I'd like to explore that as well.
Cool. I'd be all for watching that show. Also, I wrote down the names of the shows that you were talking about, Chasing Monsters and Last of the Giants, because as an audience member said, those are both shows that are great fits for a Breckenridge audience. Because that's what we do. We get outside and we love to, you know, see people getting outside and doing crazy things that are maybe a little bit beyond the crazy things we do.
Yeah, I was just spent the day rafting down a river today, so in the middle of nowhere. So,
I love whitewater rafting. So both of you, or all four of you, have worn multiple hats in your filmmaking, you know, director, producer, writer, editor, etc. On this particular film and in your experiences so far, which of those jobs have been the most difficult for you, and which have been the most rewarding, and why? So I'll start with Jeff and Holly.
So the internet froze a little bit. So which of those hats was the most difficult, and what was the second part?
And which was the most rewarding that you
Okay.
enjoyed the most, and why? Yeah.
Well, I would say that I'll start with the most rewarding and then go to the most difficult. The most rewarding is having this idea, writing it, developing it. You know, the first draft, you always think, it's pretty good, you know, and then you get torn apart and you work on it and you start to see where you can make it better. And so that process was really rewarding, especially then, you know, with my sister, who's my co-producer, going out there and making it happen, putting it together, getting this great team together. And there was a lot of moments of doubt. There was, you know, is this thing going to work? You know, like, it's a low budget superhero movie. We're not Marvel. We're not DC, you know, like, are we going to pull this off? You know, like, is it just going to be goofy? We don't have the budget to make really awesome costumes. So we're just going to do the costumes the way, you know, these characters would have made the costumes, and Tony Stark's not making anybody costumes in our film. So, you know, but is that going to work? And you know, I had to turn down a lot of contracts and jobs to do the film, and it took so long, and I ended up editing it after our first editor did the first pass, and so that took time. So to have it finished after all that, and so there was a lot of anxiety on my part, worrying that it maybe I wouldn't be able to pull it off, I guess, was my anxiety. And then to watch it with an audience and to see the reaction to it, that's really been the most rewarding part for me. I'll let Holly answer that herself. And then the most difficult thing for me is the producing side of it. So I love, like, raising the money is fine, writing writing proposals, I enjoy that stuff, but it's the nitty gritty stuff, the contracts, which I let Holly do most of. But you know, doing the tax stuff at the end, all the paperwork, all the accounting, like, it's an independent film, and we had, because we got Arts Council money, we were responsible for an audit at the end. And so we had to have all the I's dotted and all the T's crossed financially. And so that stuff did not appeal to me. And we didn't have the funding to hire a full-time accountant. So we ended up, Holly and I, doing a lot of that. And for me, that's the least, you know, I know some people really get off on that stuff, but yeah.
Some crazy people.
Not me.
Holly, anything to add?
I think definitely rewarding and also difficult was working with a sibling who's also one of my best friends. But I mean, rewarding, definitely. Like, obviously it was super fun, the years of working on the script together, and, you know, then sitting in my backyard and just right before the film, like for the 2 months before the film, just prepping and coming up with ideas and crunching numbers. And that's something that I love doing. But then when you're on set and it's super stressful, and I was line producing it, and Jeff's obviously busy doing all his directing stuff, you know, when it's like, we're running out of money and the clock is ticking, we're overtime, it's hard to say things like that to your brother.
Brother, yeah, no, that's true. I totally understand. Yeah.
It's been easier to say it for sure, to like be like, we gotta pull the plug, man. We don't have any money. But also Jeff was financing all the overtime himself. He's like, no, man, it's okay. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. And you know, you also, I didn't want to disappoint my brother, which was
Right.
like, you know, we've been doing, you know, we've been siblings for over 40 years.
For a
So
long time, yeah.
a long time. You know,
Yeah, as long as I can remember anyway.
want to disappoint each other. So yeah, and that was also what was so rewarding about it too, was, you know, we had a lot of fun together. And
Well, I'm super proud that, you know, when I see the credits at the end and it's your name at the end and our names together, and our dad, who just passed away, by the way, in January, is in the film. He has a cameo. Obviously, when we put him in there, we didn't know, but he's the old man tying the ribbon on the ladder.
Wow.
But every time I see the film, I get a little choked up because it's.
Oh, wow.
the last time I saw a screening of the film was, I don't know, before lockdown, so February.
It was in February. Yeah, it was February.
Our dad had passed away in January, and I hadn't seen the film in a really long time. And I'd forgotten that my dad was in the movie. So we're just sitting there like, oh, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden my dad popped up. I lost it in the cinema. I just lost it. And I looked at Jeff, I'm like, what? I totally forgot about that.
So it's a family affair. Yeah, it's been.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left, so I'd like Robert and Kelly to answer the same question. You know, what was the most difficult role and what was the most rewarding role for you and why?
Yeah, I mean, for me, so I guess contrary to Jeff, I mean, I am like tortured, I think, by the blank page. I do not really enjoy writing because I feel like by the time you commit something to paper and you say it's final, you know, it's just a process of like, you know, compromising or trying to make this like work up to what you had in your head. So that I can do. That's much more pragmatic. But when you have absolutely limitless possibilities, I think that can kind of be paralyzing. So writing this was, you know, as I guess I kind of described before, like even before I started, I was just sort of like, well, what do I want it to be? I want it to be really good. I mean, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and so writing stuff for me, I think, and for that reason. But the most rewarding is definitely directing. I mean, I love working with actors more than anything. I love sort of, you know, coaching performances, and you know, we sat down with everybody before production and sort of said, okay, how are you reading this? What's your interpretation of this? I mean, just kind of moving through different elements of performances and hopefully locking them down. And I love that. I mean, I really love the nitty gritty, and there's just nothing like, you know, doing 3 or 4 takes and it's like, it's not quite there. And then they nail it. I mean, that's to me the best feeling in the world, is this performance that's like, yes, okay, we've met this wonderful thing. So definitely directing, I would say, for me. And I have the benefit of having a great producer, not just Kelly, but Israel Lopez is another producer that worked on this film. And so I did a little producing, but mostly I got to let her do all the hard stuff, which was great.
He let me, yeah. I didn't really wear multiple hats on this. I basically signed on as 100% the producer. Normally sometimes I'll assistant direct and produce, and I'll never do that again at the same time. That's too much. But like just in general for me, I have dabbled with directing. I hate it. That's why I have him. And because I don't think about all the nitty gritty things that you do that you like. But then the most rewarding for me, I think, usually is the writing. I also do comedy writing, so I do stand-up as well. But producing other people's projects has slowly become my passion. I don't know why really, but I stopped kind of working on my own stuff because I think it's a lot better when it's sort of like both of us putting in 100%. And I'm very willing to be like, okay, I'm all in on your project because I know he's going to be all in. So that's really something that I'm slowly like learning more and more is, oh, I want to be a producer. Because I went to film school to be a writer, and I transitioned into producing to get my own stuff made, but
she's a good writer.
Started doing other people's stuff too.
Well, I think we're all trying to wear fewer hats. I mean, I think in the industry, it's like you want to do one thing really well. So I think we're all kind of trying to figure out how to specialize.
I can't write drama though. I know that about myself. I will not do it. But comedies I can do.
You try different hats to see which one fits.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, well, we are pretty much to the end of our time limit, I want to, first of all, give huge thanks to the Breck Film Fest team, the board, the volunteers, the donors, and sponsors for making this year happen. In particular, thanks to our star sponsors and all the businesses and individuals who worked so hard during this particularly challenging year. Thank you to the filmmakers for trusting us with this year's program, for trusting us to come up with a festival that would showcase your films. We're grateful to you, and we've done our best to honor your important place in the festival. Many thanks to Jeff, Holly, Robert, and Kelly for being willing to participate in this online Q&A session and doing such a great job answering our questions. Audience, be sure to share the website breckfilmfest.org with all your friends. We still have a whole weekend left to watch films. And if you have not seen the Uplifting Moments short drama block, you are missing out. So go see it if you haven't already. And thanks everyone for coming. And that's a wrap.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you.
Thank you.